Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the heart. You must know that the heart beats 100,000 times a day. It roughly pumps about 7,200 liters of blood per day. And you would like to know further that through this vast network of blood vessels, stretching 100,000 kilometers, this is long enough to circle the earth 2.5 times. I know it sounds unbelievable. This is the sturdiness, this is the resilience of your heart, the heart that has been given to you as a gift. And how well should we preserve it? But this same heart, which is so resilient and so strong, is eroded by risk factors. Risk factors like diabetes and blood pressure, LDL cholesterol and weight. By LDL cholesterol, I mean L stands for L is lousy, just to remember it. And reduced HDL, H stands for happy, so reduced HDL. The happy cholesterol goes down, LDL goes up. That is the risk factors for the heart. And along with that, overweight status and sedentary lifestyle, and of course the genetics. So, and there may be many more, but we don't want to go into a data overload. So this is the sturdiness of the heart and the resilience which is eroded by risk factors. So I have this C3, case number 3, case of my very dear friend whom I first met in 1993. And then there was a hiatus where I didn't meet him till 2010 when he suddenly showed up again. And then he had already settled in Canada, and that's where I was going to be. So interestingly, he is there with me right now till 2026, and a very dear friend of mine whom I wish to dedicate this chapter to. And he will know about it. So now he is a diabetic. Excuse me. And he is also hypertensive, high blood pressure. But he is being checked annually. He says to me that his ECG is normal, his echocardiogram is normal, his exercise tolerance test is normal, and his cardiologist is happy with him, and he's happy that his cardiologist is happy. So one day when I was walking with him, and we walked a small, not very long distance, I was beginning to notice that he is younger than I am, but he is getting a little bit short of breath. And I was not. So I observed that for a while without commenting. And I noticed that this was a little bit increasing as he walked. Then we sat down on the bench and we were happy. And we came back and I told him that, look, I thought you were a little bit out of breath when you walked. Has your cardiologist gone through the entire protocol? He says, yes, everything is fine. It is very good. I was happy to hear that. But then he has the risk factors of diabetes, and he has a risk factor of high blood pressure. And then on close questioning, he also has a risk factor of genetics. His brother was a victim of sudden death at an earlier age of premature cardiovascular disease. So I did not hesitate to tell him that, look, maybe you should ask your doctor to do a non invasive test like a CT coronary angiogram. Of course, when you hear this, it doesn't mean that all of you have to rush in for that. It just means that you need to compare your notes with your doctor if you ever have these risk factors or these symptoms. So don't rush in thinking that, well, you also have a problem. Your doctor is the only best judge. Look at the description below and follow that. So he goes to his doctor, and his doctor says, look, your ECG is normal, echocardiogram is normal, exercise tolerance test is normal. I don't think you have a real problem. So he rest assured you'll be fine. And he comes back to me and he reports that, and I'm still not terribly satisfied. Excuse me again. And he goes back to his doctor and says that, look, I know somebody who is also a doctor, and says that you should do a CT angiogram just to make sure, because I have these risk factors of diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and also genetics. Doctor is not convinced, but because the patient has asked this number of times, he decides to go ahead and do it. And CT angiogram is done and shows a 3-vessel disease, 80 to 90% blockages. And the only symptom he has is being out of breath. No chest pain. But then remember, he is a diabetic. Diabetes is known to mask chest pain. And that's what possibly was happening to him. When he goes back to the doctor for the result, and the doctor sees this, he gets extremely panicked. And he says that, look, I think this is something unusual. I did not expect it. But now that it has shown up, I think you better get admitted to the hospital immediately. Don't take a chance, because you don't know what's going to happen. So basically, this then turns out to be a ticking time bomb in the chest. But I don't know, somehow he doesn't want to get admitted. And he says, well, if I need a bypass, which the doctor is saying that you need, and you need it as soon as possible, and if you get admitted, then we'll be able to do it as soon as possible, he decides to wait. Why? Because he wants to research out the best possible cardiothoracic surgeon who will do the bypass for him. And in his research, he finds the so-called best, what he thinks is his research is shown as the best. And he talks to me about it. And I said, look, I think you're not making the right decision. You are taking a big risk. Now that this has been determined, you should go ahead, get admitted, and get the thing over with ASAP, as soon as possible. But still, he is not convinced and he wants to wait. And then appointment with the cardiothoracic surgeon whom he wants is 3 months later. And he decides to leave it till 3 months. Well, as you can see that he is still up and about, active and healthy, means this 3 months waiting period bore fruit mercifully, but that is after having taken a big risk. And the bypass was done, it was successful. He went through the rehab, his blood pressure was corrected, his diabetes is under control, and he is fine and feeling in excellent health right now. So, what all is the moral of the story in this case? Risk factors are important. The patient has diabetes, blood pressure, genetics, and cholesterol. The genetics is such that his brother, at a younger age, suffered from premature coronary artery disease. Now that he's diabetic, one doesn't expect all diabetics to have chest pain because diabetes masks chest pain quite often. So you have to have a higher index of suspicion. Sometimes shortness of breath is an equivalent to chest pain. Is the equivalence to angina. What is the chest pain on exertion? So this gentleman had shortness of breath on exerting, on walking. So that is the first thing. The risk factors, the index of suspicion, and a non-invasive test is possible. An ECG is reliable only when it shows a problem. When it doesn't show a problem, an ECG can be absolutely normal in 50% of cardiac cases. An exercise tolerance test can also be normal in many cases which have coronary artery disease. And an echocardiogram also demonstrates structural and dynamic results of the heart, the blood vessels, the walls of the heart, the septum of the heart, and the ejection fraction of the heart may not tell you a direct evidence of coronary artery disease. So in such a situation, only your doctor can decide. Once again, I repeat, do not go by what I am saying. I am not your doctor and you are not my patient. But go back to your doctor and your doctor will be able to guide you looking at the entire profile, looking at all the risk factors, looking at your age, looking at your symptoms will help to decide as to what should be the next step. There is, of course, a non-invasive test which is called CT coronary angiogram, which this patient got done. And we've got the answer. Mercifully, God was with him and with me for having suggested this to him. God bless you all. Have a good day and thank you for listening and hope you will continue to smile with Dr. Ismail. Goodbye. Cheers.